that may be related to increasing weight, being inactive. People who tend to be inactive may have a tendency to gain weight more quickly, and it may be more difficult if they lose weight to keep that weight off. There are certain issues with eating behaviors. Perhaps eating too fast can contribute to becoming overweight because you lose out on those signals that tell you you're full. Fast food, God, that stuff's easy to inhale, as my mother used to say. And we may not be paying attention to those food cues that tell us that we're hungry or that tell us about what we're hungry for. And there are folks who are emotional eaters. And we'll talk more about this when we talk about eating disorders. We tend to have a lot of different types of hunger, but we tend to feed them all with food. How do we control excess weight? We go back to that balance. But I will tell you that this is very easy to say, just with that in quotes, eat less and exercise more. That's the easy part. Consuming less calories, decreasing intake and increasing expenditure can certainly help draw on fat stores and help you lose body fat. That's the easy part of the equation. And we'll get to the harder part in a second. But the benefits of exercise, I'm sure you've heard of them. I'm sure you know them. And you can have a look at them here. And there's a lot of fad diets out there. Maybe when we get together, you can tell me what are some of the ones you've heard of. I used to say diets don't work. But now what I do say is all diets work while you're on them. The proof is in the maintenance. And here are some examples of diets that people have been on. And low carb is very popular now. No carb is crazy. I would really like to hear from you about what are some of the diets you've heard or that are popular that you know folks have been on and how well that's worked. This last one here, Nutrisystem, this is one of those prepackaged foods where they send you stuff, and I just have anecdote alert. Some quotes from people who've used Nutrisystem. The dehydrated hamburger becomes meat mush when prepared. Tuna and chicken salad are puree. The chocolate tastes like eating sawdust. And that's a sin. Quote, some of my patients have complained that the meals are bland, unpalatable, and taste like cardboard. This is also one of my favorite red alerts because there's lots of fraud diets out there. I lost $350 in 2 weeks. Just ask me how. Remember, if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. Beware of weight loss supplements that are advertised as dietary supplements. What you need to know is that supplements are not regulated by the government, and what's on the label isn't necessarily what's in the product. Please be careful. While I generally am not concerned about your generic vitamin mineral supplement, I do worry about weight loss supplements, sports supplements, sexual enhancement supplements, because these can be contaminated with drugs. And weight loss supplements are not exempt. There was a medication that was taken off the market because of adverse effects, and it was found to be in a natural weight loss supplement. So yes, people lost weight when they took this supplement, but it wasn't because of any of the magic that was in the supplement or it's being natural. It's because it contained a drug that had been taken off the market. So some of these supplements can suppress appetite and may be okay. And I have here herbal stimulants, but again, what's on the label isn't necessarily what's in the product. And here are some of examples of supplements out here. This one in the lower left is one I took when I was younger, when I was overweight. And it kind of wouldn't be advertised now, but these were these little candies that came with a piece of paper that was basically a 1,200 calorie diet. It was take 2 of these with each meal and follow this diet and you'll lose weight. Well, if you just followed a 1,200 calorie diet and didn't take those candies, you would have lost weight anyway. And of course, Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz has something for everybody that probably shouldn't be talking to anybody. Then there are actual weight loss medications, not supplements, but medications. Here are some examples. Although I think I've read something recently about Belviq. I'm not going to ask you to give me examples of these. What I want you to know is that there are supplements and there are medications. and the risks of taking supplements. There are fat-blocking drugs. Xenical is one of them. I think it's now referred to as Ally. It blocks the absorption of about 25% of the fat that people consume. That which does not get digested and absorbed, that's what blocking does. It ultimately gets excreted, not necessarily when you want to excrete it. So it comes with risks. Surgery is another option. And I will include these video links on Blackboard for you to have a look. One of the surgeries is the gastric sleeve, where you are having a portion of your stomach removed. Up to 70% of the stomach is removed. So you are still digesting food. It's still going through your stomach. It's just that the stomach is a lot smaller. You have to eat a lot less. You need to work with a dietitian if you're going to be having this surgery. Well, any kind of surgery that is related to bariatric surgery. And the gastric bypass, please have a look at this video as well. What it involves is reducing the size of the stomach and bypassing segments of the small intestine. So now you not only have a tiny pouch where your stomach used to be, but you're also bypassing sections of the small intestine where nutrients are absorbed. So folks who have bypass surgery have to pay a lot of attention to the types of food they're eating, as well as the supplements they need to take in order to get the nutrients they need, because their body's not able to get them from food and from absorption from the small intestine. This slide shows two procedures, stomach stapling and vertical banded gastroplasty. Where it says staples, you can see where stapling of the stomach can occur. And then where the gastric band is, shows you that a band could be put around a part of the stomach. Now, the band could be loosened or tightened, but the staples, the concern with staples had to do with side effects. The staples could get separated. I think that's a kind way of saying the staples burst, but they had a lot of problems. So stomach stapling and gastroplasty are not as effective as the procedures shown in the two previous slides. I want to talk to you about the difference between weight loss and fat loss, because, and I'm guilty of it as well. I talk about weight loss and people wanting to lose weight. Really what I want to refer to is fat loss. I think when most people talk about wanting to see a change in the scale, they want to change their body composition so that they have less body fat and increase muscle mass. What you need to understand is that there is a difference between weight loss and fat loss. I'm sitting here right now recording this, but I weigh about 145 pounds. And if I drank a quart of water, 32 ounces, and I got back on the scale, I would weigh 147 pounds. We all know that I didn't just put on 2 pounds of fat. I put on 2 pounds of weight. Weight loss is what occurs when someone goes on a fad or a crash diet. Weight loss is something that occurs quickly. It results in a loss of lean body mass or muscle mass. It includes water loss, and it tends to be temporary because you didn't change the behaviors that led you to overeat to begin with. What I like to do when I'm working with people is focus on fat loss. And fat loss takes time. But when you are working on fat loss, when you decrease your calories in, when you increase your calories out, change the behaviors that led you to overeat to begin with, you will draw on your fat stores, you will preserve your muscle mass, and hopefully maintain that weight loss. I did it again, and hopefully maintain that fat loss. So please know the difference between weight loss and fat loss and the risks associated with just trying to quickly lose weight. Fat loss takes time. I want to go over a study that was done at the NIH on showing how ultra-processed diets caused an excess of calories consumed and an increase in weight. This was a study that was done in a metabolic ward. Actually, it says here, a metabolic clinical research unit at the National Institutes of Health. It was done by Dr. Kevin Hall. The purpose of the study, let's see, do I have this here? The purpose of the study was to look at whether ultra-processed foods resulted in increased intake and increased weight gain or fat gain versus unprocessed foods. There's actually a criteria for what's considered ultra-processed and unprocessed, and they used these criteria when they were planning the meals for the folks. Now, this was a short study. It was 2 weeks on one diet and 2 weeks on the other, but it was done in a metabolic ward where they were able to control everything that was going in and everything that was coming out, and they did blood work. So it's a good start. The results of the study showed that when folks, when folks were on the ultra-processed diet, they tended to eat an average of 500 calories more each day, resulting in an increase of 2 pounds of fat for over the 2 weeks that they were on the diet. When they were on the unprocessed diet, they tended to average a decrease of 500 calories per day, resulting in a loss of 2 pounds over a week's time. Now, this is a study where they weren't eating a measured amount of food. They could eat as much as they wanted. It was just afterwards they measured how much folks had eaten. So that's how they knew how many calories they were consuming. And the results showed that when folks were on the unprocessed diet, they lost 2 pounds over the 2-week period. And when they were on the ultra-processed diet, they gained a pound a week or 2 pounds over the 2-week period. Dr. Hall wanted to make sure, though, that before national guidelines were made that discourage ultra-processed foods, people should be mindful of the fact that time, skill, expertise, and effort to prepare meals from minimally processed foods requires resources that are often in short supply. I think we read a lot about how we should be eating unprocessed foods, that we should be eating fresh fruits and vegetables, but the reality is not everybody has access, time, skill, everything that he's saying here, that people should be working on other ways to help get these skills to folks in order to help change their food processing, in order to help them to prepare foods that are less processed. Here's some pictures of the foods that were in this study. On the left, what was this? This was breakfast. On the right, this was the unprocessed. Lunch on processed. Lunch on unprocessed. Oh, these glasses here on the left, that's Crystal Light with the fiber supplement, because as it turns out, ultra-processed diets tend to have very little fiber in them. Dinner on ultra-processed, dinner on unprocessed. Now, to me, the unprocessed food looks really good, and I would probably choose those foods. However, they did evaluate folks, they did ask them, and apparently the appearance and the taste of the food was appealing in both unprocessed and ultra-processed. So go figure. Here's a formula to help give you an idea of how to lose body fat. It's suggesting being in a deficit of 500 calories per day, just like the folks that lost a pound of fat per week in the previous study. When you're in negative energy balance to the tune of 500 calories a day, that's about 3,500 calories a week, which should result in a loss of 1 pound of fat. So one way of getting into a 500 calorie deficit would be 40 minutes of aerobic exercise, cutting out 200 calories. So you would be in a deficit of 500 calories per day. And this the operative word is should, result in a pound per week of body fat while preserving muscle mass. And that's what you want to do. You want to preserve your lean muscle mass. You don't want to lose muscle while you're trying to lose body fat. A faster rate of weight loss forces the body to use muscle protein to meet the energy needs of the body. The benefits of exercise, okay, so here's a whole lot. You can have a look at them at your own time. But I do want to remind you that overexercising one area of the body does not result in spot reduction. I think the only way you lose spot reduction is liposuction. And the fact of the matter is you can still gain fat back, but just around that one spot. You won't gain fat, and it'll probably look pretty weird. Weight loss strategies, you want to have eating plans that are realistic, that result in small changes over time. You want to increase your activity. And I tell folks, pick something that you like. You know, if you don't like to run, don't run. If you don't like to swim, don't swim. Find something that you like to do. And this is the hardest part that I mentioned earlier, all right? The decreasing intake and the increasing expenditure, that's the easy part. This is the hard part. Changing the behaviors that led you to overeat to begin with. So you need to be realistic. You should work with somebody to help you maintain behaviors or to make behavior changes that you can live with. If you like Oreo cookies, I would never tell you to eliminate Oreo cookies. I might say, well, see how you can do with eating 3 of them instead of 6 of them. Oh, am I talking about myself again? Well, the idea is to set realistic goals, and this is the hardest part. Before we go, I just want to remind you that there are no foods, combinations of foods, or special formulas or pills that will burn off, melt away, or rearrange fat. Let me just say that one more time. There are no foods, combinations of foods, special formulas, or pills that will burn off, melt away, or rearrange fat. All right, folks, I'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves.